Ladies and gentlemen, the third requisite for a valid will under Muslim law is that subject matter of the will should be valid. Means the property which is intended to be given to the legatee must be lawful. According to the Muslim law, a testator can make a valid will only of the property that he owns and which is by nature capable of being transferred as per rules. It is also necessary that subject matter of the bequest, that is the property, must be in existence at the time of the death of the testator. It is not necessary that the property bequeathed by will must be in existence at the time of making of the will. It may not be, but it must be so at the time of the death of the testator. For the will to take effect, because the will takes effect from the point of the time of this is the vital point of the difference between will and gift. Because will takes effect only after the death of the testator, but gift takes effect immediately on the delivery of the possession of the subject matter of the gift. This is the basic difference between will and gift. Therefore, suppose A writes a will, I give to be the plot X that I shall purchase at the Jodhpur. If this plot is purchased by A later on, is plot should be on A's death, B will get it as a legatee. But if A fails to purchase it and dies, B cannot say that the plot should be purchased from the testator's property and given to be in compliance with the A's will, for there is no will in that case. So, ladies and gentlemen, basic rule is that whatever is intended to be given by means of the bequest by the testator, that subject matter must be available to be given to the legatee on the death of the testator. It may have been even on the on the date of making of the will, or may not have been. That is immaterial. What is material in point of the time is that at the death of the testator, the subject matter of the will should be physically available to be transferred out of the possession of the testator to the concerned legatees. If the will, subject matter of the will was not available to be given to the legatee on the death of the testator, will be deemed to have lapsed. Therefore, it is necessary that subject matter of the will, say for example, on the date of the death of on the date of making of the will, subject matter was in existence, but later on it has gone out of the ownership of the testator at before the death of. For example, suppose H is a testator. He executed a will on 1/1/2019 of his house H. He is the bona fide owner of this house H. He is fully competent to dispose of this house by making the bequest. On a particular date, bequest is made. Now, bequest has been made on 1/1/2019. After 6 months of the bequest, the house has been sold to someone, and thereafter the H has died. Now, legatee will not be entitled to anything because the subject matter of the will, that was the house which before the death of the testator was out of his ownership. Therefore, he will not be, legatee will not be entitled to any. So, subject matter of the bequest must be very much in existence at the time when the wasiyat is given effect. And as a rule, wasiyat made by a Muslim is is entitled, will be given effect only after his death. Try to explain with the help of the example. However, the subject matter of the will can be anything, any movable or immovable, over which the right of the property may be exercised, or which may form the subject of exchange, barter, or fractional share thereof, it or it may be usufruct of anything which can be lawfully disposed of by will. A bequest remains valid and operative though subsequent to the making of the will the testator makes any changes or improvements over the property subject to such changes as imply a revocation by the testator. Thus A bequests a house to B and later modernizes it, B will get the improved building. A gives a plot to B by will and later builds a house over it. The B will get the plot and A's heir will get the house. But if A bequeaths a house to B and later on pulls down the house, B gets nothing. Or house has been sold, B will get nothing. Subject matter of the will may be anything I have already pointed out. It may be corpus of the property, that is the corpus of the property, or it can be even the usufruct of an existing property, or it may be a vested remainder. A corpus must be, however, subject matter of the bequest must be in existence at the time of the death of the testator. Muslim law differentiate between the corpus of the property and the usufruct of the corpus. Means the body, physical form of the property, such as house means constructed building. Usufruct means the benefit arising from the physical form of the property. For example, a tree is a, a property existing in the physical form, but the fruits of the tree are the benefits arising from the therefore, all the benefits arising from the body of the property, they are known as the usufruct. Thus, in regard to the house, the usufruct means the right to live in it, rental income from it. The bequest must wait in the legatee, absolute ownership over the corpus, and the corpus must physically exist at the time of the death. Usufruct may, on other hand, be given for a limited duration when this period relates to the lifetime of the legatee. It is called life estate. For example, A bequests B the right to live in the house of A till B dies. It is permissible to give the corpus to one person by means of the will and the usufruct to another over the same property at the same time under the will. Ladies and gentlemen, the other requirement for a valid will is that bequest must be within the limit of Muslim law. A Muslim is empowered under his personal law to dispose of his property in the exercise of the power, in the exercise of the testamentary powers. But his right to bequest is not absolute. Rather, it is subject to the condition that one can bequest only to the extent of 1/3 of his net property. The extent of 1/3 is ascertained after payment of funeral expenses and debts etc. This limit of one third is not laid down in the Holy Quran, but is based on the following traditions of the Holy Prophet. There was a companion of the Holy Prophet, Saad Abi Waqqas. It is reported that by Saad Abi Waqqas that he was ill in the years of conquest of the Makkah and was near dying, and the Prophet, peace be upon him, came to see him, and he said, O Holy Prophet, I have much property and no heir except my daughter. May I then make a will leaving all my wealth for religious and charitable purpose? He said, no. I said, may I do so with 1/2 of it? He said, no. I said, shall I with 1/2 of it? He said, no. I said, may I with 1/3 of it? His Holiness said, make a will disposing of 1/3 in that manner, for 1/3 is great deal, particularly for this great wealth which you possess. For verily, if you die and leave your heirs rich, it is better than leaving them poor or beggar. For verily, the money which you expend for God's pleasure, you will be rewarded for, even to the mouthful which you lift up to your wife's mouth. There is another hadith supporting to the idea or rule that bequest is permitted only to the extent of 1/3 of his net property. Net property means the property which is left after certain payments. This rule is based or find support from this saying of the Holy. Therefore, genesis of 1/3 basically is the saying of the Holy Prophet, which is mentioned over here in sum and substance. A rule of 1/3 was recognized by courts in successive cases, which I have mentioned in the slide over here. Thus, no Muslim can bequeath more than 1/3 of his estate. For example, he dies leaving rupees 50, 1,000, 5,000, 10,500. His funeral expenses cost rupees 500. His debts rupees 1,000. The balance rupees 9,000 is the net property. Hence, bequeathable 1/3 amounts to, in the given example, only rupees 3,000. And A cannot dispose of more than 3,000 by means of the bequest. But suppose A bequeathed rupees 40,000, then the bequest would not take effect unless the heirs of A gives their consent after the death of A under Hanafi law, or before or after his death under the Shia law. Ladies and gentlemen, now I come to another important aspect of the will, that is abatement of legacies. I have already explained that a Muslim owner is entitled to make a lawful will of his or her property, but only to the extent of 1/3 of his net total property available after his death or her death. However, where a wasiyat is executed by a testator in his life and after his death it is found, wasiyat is found in excess of the limit of 1/3 which is prescribed by the Muslim law. On the face of the record, such wasiyat will be invalid because it is in violation of the general principle, that is, rule of one third. However, if this is the situation, then before discarding the will in toto, consent of the other heirs will be obtained to the excess amount of the will. If the heirs of the deceased or testator willingly give their consent to the entire amount of the excess found in excess of the limit, even the will exceeding to the limit of one third will become void immediately and will be operated, and the legatee will be given the bequeathed entire bequeathed property. Therefore, under Sunni law, as a general rule, bequest in excess of one third of the estate of deceased would take effect with respect to one third only. Rule is that bequest in excess of one third of the estate of the deceased would take effect with respect to only one third. Excess will go by inheritance to the legal heirs. Where there are more than one legatees and the property given to them exceed one third, the share of each legatee would be reduced proportionately to make it within the limit of one third. So, as a general rule, bequest should be within the limit of one third of net property. If it is in excess of the limit of one third, then before discarding it, consent will be obtained of the other heirs. If consent is given by other heirs, will automatically become valid and will be operated, and legatee will get the benefit under the will. However, where the will is found in excess of the limit of one third after the death of the testator and the other heirs do not give their consent, then bequest will be made by reducing it to the permissible limit of one third. And this process of reducing the will to the limit of one third is basically called as abatement of the legacy or abatement of the legacies. Now there are illustrations, and with the help of illustration I explain this rule of abatement of legacy. Suppose there is a Muslim A. He executes a will giving rupees 30,000 to A. Somebody, say for example A. Suppose here X is a Muslim and he executes a will giving rupees 30,000 to A and rupees 20,000 to, say for example, B, and rupees 20,000 to B. He leaves behind the property that comes 75,000 after the payment of his funeral expenses, etc. Here the bequeathable limit would be one third, that is 25,000, while the bequest is for rupees 50,000, means 30,000 to A and 30,000 to B. The total bequest in favor of the A and B will be exceeding the limit, because permissible limit is only 25,000. But here our total will is 50,000, means it is in excess of 25,000. The ratio of the bequest will be the bill will be proportionately reduced to bring it within the limit of one third. Here the bequest between the A and B is in the ratio of 3:1. So in the same ratio the will be proportionately reduced. That is, the bequest due to A would become rupees 15,000 instead of 30,000, and the bequest that a B would become rupees 10,000. The sum total of these bequests would become rupees 25,000, and bequest to the extent of 25,000, since in the given example is permissible, therefore it will become valid and would be operated after the death of the deceased testator, whosoever may be here. Now in the same way, there is another illustration. Testator bequest rupees 50,000 to A and 15,000 to A and rupees 30,000 to B and rupees 45,000 to C by same will. The net value of his assets is rupees 90,000 after payment of his funeral expenses, debt, etc. Out of rupees 90,000, the bequeathable limit is rupees 30,000, one third. The legacies would be proportionately reduced so that the total amount comes within the bequeathable of one third, that is 30,000. Thus, A would take only 5,000, B would take rupees 10,000 and C will take 15,000. And in this way, sum total of bequest would be 30,000 and permissible limit is also 30,000. Whereas the bequest was more than permissible, means it was 15,000 plus 30,000 plus 45,000, so means it was in excess of the limit of one third, and therefore prima facie it was invalid. Now in order to make it valid, consent was obtained, nobody gave the consent, then the rule is that it will be abated or will be reduced to and will be scaled down to the limit of one third. In the given example, total property, net property is 90,000. Of this, permissible limit is only 30,000, whereas property given to the by bequest is more than to the legatees. Therefore, every legatee, the share of every legatee will be reduced proportionately in order to bring the bequest within the limit and to make it valid and operative. This is the basically our rule. There is another illustration. Suppose A dies leaving behind assets rupees worth rupees 1.5 lakh, 1,50,000. He made a will giving rupees 50,000 to his daughter and rupees 50,000 to a friend. His wife and son another 2 years refused to confirm the bequest. Here the bequeathable limit is 50,000. As under Sunni law, the bequest in favor of the heir is not valid unless the consent by heirs. The bequest in favor of the daughter will be inoperative. The will in favor of the friend would be valid. The widow, son and daughter would inherit from rupees 1 lakh as per the laws of inheritance. Now this is another illustration. A Sunni Muslim has a asset worth rupees 1,80,000. He makes a bequest in favor of 3 persons X, Y and Z, giving each rupees 60,000. Here amount bequeathed under the bequest is an extra one third to 3 legatees by the same will. Sunnis applied to the rule of rateable or proportionate reduction irrespective of whether the amount given to each of the legatee is an identical one third or is different vis-a-vis each other. So the bequeathable one third is rupees 60,000 and rupees 60,000 is each is amount given to beneficiaries under the will. Legacy of the each will be reduced one third, namely 60,000, one third rupees 20,000 will be given. Friends, under Shia law, if the legacy is given to 2 or more legatees under the bequest, the rule of chronological priority is allowed followed. Legatee whose name appears same in same will and it exceeds the bequeathable one third with the years refusing to consent to the first in the will is to be given his share, followed by second legatee and then the third given to the will. Any other legatee whose name follows after one third of the asset and so on, the moment the bequeathable one third is exhausted, full effect has been given, having been given, distributed, will not be given anything. There is another illustration. A testator dies leaving behind asset rupees 1,20,000. He leaves a will under which he gives rupees 20,000 to A, 30,000 to B and 40,000 to C. As the total asset of the testator are to the tune of rupees 1,20,000, bequeathable one third will be 1,20,000 is 40,000. Following the rule of order priority as A's name appear first, he will be given 20,000. The rest of the rupees 20,000 will be given to B, C will get nothing. As the one third, that is 40,000 is exhausted by satisfying the claim of first two legatees in order. Since for third legatee nothing is left, therefore under Shia law he will not get anything. But under Sunni law, rule is different. There will be proportionate reduction in the share of the every legatee which he has got under a will. Another illustration is a testator makes a will in favor of his wife, giving her rupees 30,000 and his friend giving him rupees 5,000. His total asset amounted to rupees 2 lakh. After deducting funeral expenses and payment of debts, the net asset came to rupees 1,80,000. The heirs did not conform to the bequest. A wife is an heir, but under Shia law, to the extent of one third property can be bequeathed to anyone. Even heir can be legatee if the bequest is within the limit of one third. So, applying the rule of order priority, 30,000 will be given to the wife and rest rupees 30,000 will be taken by the friend. And in this way, a rule of abatement of legacy under Sunni law is applicable. Here friends, it must be kept in the mind that while applying the rule of abatement of legacy, care must be taken of the fact, the nature of the bequest, who are the legatees. According to Sunni law, under a will, if there are several legatees and bequeathable and the sum total of the bequest is more than permissible limit, then will be operated only to the tune of one third. However, a reduction will be made proportionately in the share of each legatee. I have already given the example, and with the help of the example, I have tried to convince the learners. But under Shia law, the rule is little bit different, and different type of the examples I have given. Last example is based basically on a different footing. And last is that suppose there are two legatees under a will, one is legal heir and other is non-heir. Rule is that under Shia law, even legal heir is entitled to the limit of one third. And in this way, the property, the bequest will be satisfied. And therefore, all possible effort has been made to give effect to a bequest made by the testator. Reason is because in fact our philosophy of rule is that bequest basically is supposed to be the last wish of the deceased with regard to his assets or properties. And last wish of the giving operation or giving effect to the last will of or wish of the testator basically is the more legal and moral duty of the legal heirs or surviving relatives of the deceased. Therefore, it would not be rejected or discarded summarily. Rather, all possible effort has been made, will be made to bring the will under the rule, within the rule, and after bringing it within the rule, it will be given the effect. And various methods of readjustment has been given by the Muslim law. That suppose the will is in favor of the legal heir. A Sunni law says that legal heir is not entitled to take the bequest. But exception has been created. Because this is the last will, this is the last wish of the testator. And last wish of the testator must be respected by the surviving heirs. How it can be respected? It can be respected by obtaining the consent of the other heirs. For example, H made the will in the name of his wife. On death, wife becomes the widow. As a widow, she is entitled to inherit. Prima facie, she is disqualified to be legatee. Means the wish of the testator will not be liable to be honored. But Muslim law says that no, even in this circumstance, scope is left to the surviving heirs to respect or honor to the last wish of the deceased by giving effect to it, by invoking some exceptional rule. An exception will be that consent of the other surviving heirs, that say for example there is a son and there is a daughter. So the consent of the son and daughter will be required to respect or give the effect or honor the last wish of the deceased testator. And by obtaining the giving consent of the others, here there is a possibility, there is a scope. Scope has been created to give the effect in the honor of the testator. Likewise, if the property is in excess of the limit of, because the general rule is that bequest should not be in excess of the limit of 1/3, leaving the, because if it is in excess of the 1/3, possibility is that legal heirs will be in economic trouble. Therefore, a limit has been set that in any case the bequest should not be more than 1/3. But since the bequest is the last wish of the deceased, therefore it cannot be rejected summarily that it was in excess of the limit of 1/3. Therefore, it will not be operated, it will not be given effect, and legatee will go weeping. Here, a way out has been found, suggested, and way out in this situation is that if it is in excess of the limit of 1/3, since it is the last wish of the owner, therefore some via media should be found. And via media is that consent, again the consent of the other heirs should be obtained. If the other heirs give their consent, well and good, even if it is in excess of the 1/3, will become operative, and beneficiaries or the legatees will take their claim in the form of the property. But sometime it may be situation, may be a strange situation, that legal heirs of the testator are not willing to part with the property which is in excess of the limit. Of course, it is their right, because on the death of the testator, ownership has gone to the legal heirs. They have become the owner, and therefore being the owner, they are entitled to the permissible limit. And if it is property has been given to the legatee beyond the limit, now it is on their sweet will either to part away or not to part away. If it is not given, consent is not given, then again a effort has been made. What a beautiful system has been created. That last effort is that even still in this situation, wish of the legate testator will not be allowed to go unattended. And the legatee or the beneficiary made under the will should also not feel disappointed totally. What will happen in this case? That if the will is in excess of the limit of one third, consent is not given by the legal heirs. Then what will happen? That the will be allowed to be given effect to the tune of one third, means it will be reduced to the tune of one third by abatement, and to the extent of one third it will be given to the legatee. Next, the rest excess amount will be distributed among the legal heirs according to the rules of Muslim law of inheritance. Rule is that where there are more than one legatees and excess amount is there, so how it will be reduced? It will be reduced proportionately. Proportionate will be taken out of the share of the one legatee, and in proportionality it will be minus from the share of the other legatee, maybe A and B, and in this way effect will be given to the legacy which has been created by a testator, and in this way wasiyat will be made operative, and wish of the owner, testator, will be honored by the, and this is the duty basically. This is the duty cast by law as well as the morality, because under Muslim law there are some moral duties also along with legality of the duty, and in this way, friends, wasiyat is operated. So this is all about the topic of the wasiyat under the Muslim law. I have made my best effort to clarify the points all related to the topic, that is wasiyat. It is also called as will, it is also called as a testament. But remember that a will under all the legal system, including the Muslim law, becomes operative and effective only after the death of the testator, maker of the will. So long as the testator is alive, he is the owner of the property, and being the owner, he can deal with the property in any way he likes. But after the death of the testator, it will be the bequeathable amount will go to the legatee, if otherwise it is lawful. With this, I take leave with thanks to all of you.